do ministry first. I mean, that's absolutely our recommendation.
Yeah.
Text is unlike email because you see what you sent last time. And so this is the challenge, is that they can see exactly what you sent last time. I've got one organization, the last 4 text messages they sent me were all ask, 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 and there's never been a rich piece of content in that text stream. Well, guess what happens? It's so easy to text stop, and so people do. And so, again, our recommendation there is do ministry through that channel and then yield the result as they did.
Welcome to Cause and Effect, a podcast brought to you by the Dunham Podcast Network.
Here, we will provide a fresh voice that breaks down the most recent leadership lessons, fundraising trends, and the ups and downs within the nonprofit industry.
And our goal? Increasing your effectiveness for more impact.
Welcome to this episode of the Cause and Effect Podcast. I'm Trent Dunham, President and CEO of Dunham+Company, and today we have 2, yes, count it, 1 and 2 Dunham+Company guests present with us. We have Rick Dunham, the founder and chairman of Dunham+Company, and we have Josh Crowther, vice president here at Dunham+Company. And we have a specific batch of research we're going to be reviewing together, kind of unpacking. It was released, I think, last week. Does last week sound right?
Yep, It was.
We'll talk about where you can find that research, where to look it up, how to interact with it, how to go more deeply into it, what the implications are for your organization, a lot of things. But Rick, I wanted to start out with you. You know, we do a lot of research at Dunham+Company. This is probably the most longitudinal of any bank of research we do. We call it the Donor Confidence Report. So maybe give a little context to why we do it, how long we've done it, and why we think it's so important.
Yeah, it goes back probably over 15 years ago when we were really concerned about understanding coming into a new year kind of where the mind of the donor was, what they were feeling and thinking, and trying to understand, were there things that we needed to address or be aware of in order to be more effective in fundraising coming into the new year. So that's how it got started. This is probably 14 or 15 years. Yeah. So that a lot of longitudinal data. And it's really interesting. Some things haven't changed hardly at all. Other things kind of up and down depending on the economy, et cetera.
That's a good point. We're going to talk about some of those things that have changed. So we ask a series of questions throughout the survey, and to your point, sometimes there's a big chunk of that that's kind of not interesting to report out on. But then it seems like invariably every time we commission the research, there's 1 or 2 questions that we're like, oh, didn't see that coming.
Yep.
And that's what we're going to kind of focus on today for the most part, are what are some of those key takeaways for this year. So Josh, I wanted to start with you and just talk about one of the key findings this year, and that is that the number of donors who have volunteered information that they're going to give, they anticipate giving less in 2026, has risen from that same question in 2025. So going into 25, we asked that question, I think it was like 18% said they anticipate giving less, the same or less, or I think it was just less, and then it was same or more for the other side. But that's risen to 24% going into 26. Why?
That's a very big question, and it's interesting because there's kind of 2 things going on. One of those things is they're actually saying personally their financial situation is better. So actually, we didn't expect them to say we're going to give less. In that circumstance, we most often would expect them to say, no, we're going to give more because we're doing better. Yeah. But we found there's this economic factor there. They're actually fearful about the economic future, with more of them saying than ever before that they're fearful about what the economy is going to do in the next year and how long indeed it's going to take to recover once it does get bad. And so it's less about their personal financial situation, and it's more about the fear of the future. And so in fact, almost one in four donors saying I'm going to give less this year because I'm fearful about what's coming, what's around the corner, the instability, and that's really factoring into the reason why they're going to give less.
Yeah. So in previous snapshots of this research, I think back to pandemic, inflation. Inflation is a particular reason that we saw, a couple of years ago. Really, all that kind of really goes back to my personal financial situation. Like I just don't know if I'm going to have the money. And that's different this time. I don't know whether that's disconcerting or encouraging. I'm not sure what to make of that necessarily, although it seems like the main driver for why I would want to give less or anticipate giving less is really more fear-based.
Yeah, and the economic uncertainty does always shake consumer confidence, and we know consumer confidence is tied to donor confidence. So we can see that economic shocks do that, where there's fear of the future, people tend to hold back. Well, I'm not sure how much I'm going to give. Now, the upside in that is, as this year plays out, if the economic situation stabilizes, or even if they see it play out, that in fact we can work into that, because it's only fear that's holding them back at this point. You know, if it does materialize and they do have personal shocks in their life, well, maybe they do end up giving less, but their expectation to give less isn't a done deal, because it's about a fear of the future.
And I think the early markers of the economy in this first quarter have been encouraging, because you've seen inflation not really jumping the way they thought it would. I saw a report just yesterday that the mortgage rates have come down under 6% for the first time since I forget when. But there are certain things that are beginning to shape up. And I think as people who work overtime and don't get taxes taken out of their pay for that, or get tips, I think there's some certain things that are going to start playing out that I wouldn't be surprised in the next 2 to 3 months we see that confidence shift.
Yeah, and the end of last year, I mean, the stock market actually did incredibly well. It ended so many points higher than the prior year. So even since this, because this was filtered right into the end of November, into December, and they weren't sure about where the year was even going to end up. So as we look from that point, and it continues to go from strength to strength, some of these economic factors have not played out. Now, you also have wars and rumors of wars and all of the things that we know that happen with the days that we're in. But the reality is that actually the economy looks very strong. And so that kind of reinforces a piece that we need to press into, because their personal financial situation is actually the thing that gives them the ability to give. So they have the ability, but the fear is holding them back right now.
Have we seen breakdown? Is it pretty ubiquitous across or consistent across donor band, or are we seeing people of higher net worth saying they're going to keep their powder dry, or people who give smaller gifts, or is that pretty?
Actually, the way I'd like to slice that question is a bit different, and that is, we did dive pretty deeply into the faith, what we would call religiously engaged donors, which we could separate out and look at. It's basically determined by their attendance at weekly services or weekly or greater. Those donors, interestingly enough, say they're struggling more, but plan to give more. So it's the same kind of it's a really interesting psychology going on right now, because for faith-based organizations whose donors are in fact those who are religiously engaged, they ought to be a bit encouraged that even though these households say they're struggling a bit more, they definitely plan on giving more.
Yeah.
The same or more,
Yeah, and I would say that part of what we see play out in this data set is you have a group of boomers who are less religiously engaged, who that fear factor is true. And as we cut it by their religious engagement, we found that was more of an indicating factor than by demographic. So it's pretty, it's significant when you see something like that, where 24% of the general population say they're going to give less versus 13% of these religiously engaged donors. So it's in fact, there's far more of those religiously engaged donors who say this year I'm going to give more, and in fact it's almost the exact opposite in the general market.
It's interesting. We've seen a increase in the number of churches we work with, for instance, doing capital campaigns, just because, and I think that's part of it. There's a sense that people want to put their money into things that are going to impact the community, that are going to reach the community, that are going to help accomplish a vision towards religious goals that they want to participate in that they can't do on their own. So they're seeing their local church in many ways as a provider of that. That's one of the evidences that I think would back up what you're talking about, people involved in attending religious services on a regular basis. Rick, I did want to ask, because in the spirit of the belief or the realization that when we see certain questions come back and we're like, whoa, that data was a bit surprising, we actually created in the reporting out of this most recent research, and you'll see it if you download it, and we'll tell you how to get that in a minute. But there was one of the questions that we spent an entire section on unpacking because it was, I think, not necessarily surprising, but I think it has implications for how we communicate with our donors and then our expectation of how donors engage with us, and that was around direct mail. I mean, I think we've asked the direct mail question in all
every survey.
15 years or whatever we've been doing it, but we haven't reported out on it always. But why now? And tell us some of the highlights of how people are engaging that medium.
One of the trends we've seen emerging over the last 3 or 4 years is Gen Z's desire to get direct mail.
Mm-hmm.
And of all the generations, and we laugh every time we look at this data, it's of all the generations, they're the most likely to say they want direct mail.
Yeah.
And if I remember the stat correctly, 64% want to get a monthly direct mail piece from the charities they support.
Yeah.
And
monthly.
Yeah, monthly. And
or more.
Or more.
Which is like, I don't even know how we do that.
Well, what's interesting is that you look at it by generation, and the older the generation, that percentage decreases.
Interesting. It's like counterintuitive.
Yeah, it is counterintuitive. But I think and we've had a lot of conversations about this. We think this is part of the shift and the pivoting of Gen Z to analog. You read reports of they're tired of the screen, and so they refuse to read a book on Kindle or iPad or on their phone or whatever, and they want a hardback copy or softback copy. They want something that they can hold.
Yeah.
So I'm really fascinated by this, and I think while direct mail, 82% of all donors say they respond to direct mail, so it's a very high percentage. But how they choose to respond is the big shift.
Yeah.
So if an organization merely looks at the checks or the reply cards coming back in the mail, they're going to be looking at about 20% of the actual amount of revenue. So about 22% of donors say they prefer to send a check or the reply card back with their credit card number on it through the mail, versus 47% saying they'd rather go online in response to direct mail. And I've actually seen this played out with one of our clients where we've worked out a model to look at what we call indirect income from donors who their file is tagged as having gotten that direct mail piece, and then they monitor their online giving behavior for the 30 days post the mailing, and it can't count if it's reflected or connected to an email or any other kind of activity. It's got to be purely kind of an organic gift. Double the amount of money is coming in from the indirect income versus the direct income. So that's part of the point we make in the takeaways is you've got to make sure that direct mail is strong. Donors want it. They are responding to it, but they're choosing to respond differently. And you've got to learn how to measure it properly. Otherwise, you can make a really bad decision about cutting a direct mail program.
Yeah, I work with another client that decided to do a year-end a couple of years ago, and they were like, all right, well, we can save some cost here. Let's take out the direct mail. And they had an older donor file, but they were seeing a lot of response online because of this trend we've been seeing for a couple of years now, most extremely in this most recent year. And guess what happened? I mean, they didn't put the direct mail in market. They put actually twice the number of emails in market, and they saw less than half the response to their year-end campaign because they didn't do that one channel, which had been driving, unbeknownst to them, had been driving so much of that revenue. So it is an easy decision to make in terms of cutting a cost, but it has serious consequences.
Yeah. So part of our recommendation is don't abandon the medium. Think about what you're putting into the medium, and then be cognizant of the way that you're evaluating its effectiveness.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Josh, I think I saw in there too, one of the mediums we're encouraging people to pay more attention to is text.
Right.
So I think it's like 1 in 9 donors say that they've given a gift via text.
Right.
That feels like something that's not going to slow down.
No. In fact, it's so we've got what's in the report, which really what I would say is it's an untapped potential. I mean, organizations just aren't doing this, and donors are saying, well, I've never done it because they're not doing this, which is like, you can expect that. Now, are they open to receiving text? Yes, and they are. And so, well, in fact, even going back this last December, we saw one organization raise more money from a single text message than from an email campaign that they did, and their email list is larger, and yet this engaged text audience gave more. Again, 98% open rate versus, I mean, if you're lucky right now, in the 20% range, but likely in the teens for open rates for emails. I mean, it's just, this is the world in which we're living in. Our inboxes are so jam full, and text is just a great way. And those individual donors are saying they're receptive to it, and when they're given the opportunity, we see them act on it.
That's good. I just think the takeaway for you is, how are you integrating text, that channel, into your overall marketing strategy, your fundraising strategy? What does it look like? It's not just a medium by which to ask for funds. Shouldn't be, or else it's probably not going to be successful for you. But how are you engaging with content or ministry in that medium to help eventually lead to... We had one ministry in 25 that we work with that had just done a bunch of content and ministry via text for several months, did never ask for money. And then come Giving Tuesday and year end, started to ask for money, 189 new donors in the last 6 weeks of the year. Pretty significant.
Yeah. Do ministry first. I mean, that's absolutely our recommendation. I think the other thing to think about is it's unlike email. Text is unlike email because you see what you sent last time. And so this is the challenge, is that they can see exactly what you sent last time. I've got one organization, the last 4 text messages they sent me were all ask, 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 and there's never been a rich piece of content in that text string. Well, guess what happens? It's so easy to text stop. And so people do. And so, again, our recommendation there is do ministry through that channel. And then yield the result as they did.
Yeah. We spent a fair amount of time. In fact, I think, Rick, we recorded an entire podcast episode near the end of 25 talking about the tax code changes and the implications therein. I know there was some takeaways from this research related to that. Is there a highlight or two that you would...
There is.
You would focus people on as a result of this survey that's different?
Yeah, number one. And so, we did talk about those changes in the tax law that will affect giving, especially in 26 and on. So in this particular survey, we wanted to understand how well donors knew of those provisions changing. And we also wanted to see what percentage were itemizing versus taking the standard deduction, all that good stuff. Come to find out that 75% of donors had no clue of the tax law changes.
Kind of a problem.
3 out of 4 had no clue.
Yeah.
So immediately the red flag goes up and going, okay, we got a problem here that we as organizations need to take a hold of and figure out through 26, how do we communicate? Probably the single most important communication is around the universal charitable deduction for those who take the standard deduction. So about 8% of all donors itemize when they on their tax returns. So you're talking 90 some odd percent that take the standard deduction. When we look at religiously engaged, it jumps to 22% itemized, but you still have 78% that don't.
Yeah.
So the bulk of your donors are probably taking the standard deduction. And this new provision is that if you do, if you're filing as a single, can take up to $1,000 deduction for charitable contributions. And this is an above the line deduction. So what that means is it actually shaves that off your gross income. And if you're a couple filing a joint return, it goes to $2,000. Well, there's now an incentive because I can change my tax bracket.
Yeah.
I can actually it actually helps with the standard deduction because I now can actually take that money away. So bottom line is they wanted to incentivize the common donor to start giving again because, as we all know, the trend has been dollars up, donors down.
Yep.
And so the UCD is all about engagement. Let's get as many people engaged in giving again as we possibly can.
That's good. So it's a couple takeaways. One, as a ministry organization, what are the ways we can educate our donors on the new tax laws and the implications for them as a result of that? What feels natural for us to communicate? in that, but there's a education that needs to happen within society in general, and our industry is responsible to communicate that. So like, how are we going to do that? And then being aware of that as awareness does increase around that particular topic, we will see, I think, more people engaging and giving. And so when we look at 20 people who go to file their taxes in 27 for 26, I think there's going to be some aha moments where it's like, dang, I should have done that in 26. And so even 27 might be, we might see more fruit happening as a result of people realizing what the implications are.
But that's what we've been counseling the clients that we've been working with. Part of the recommendation that we've been making is find ways, like do a drop-in in your tax receipt.
Yeah.
That just lets people know about this provision changing. And just find ways, do a little column in your newsletter. You need to drip feed this communication throughout the year, and hopefully some of it will stick.
It's good. I think this is a great charge. Josh, finally, there's a whole section we dedicated to 1 in 5 people, I think it was, that said they abandoned an online gift at some point.
Yep. Yeah, they did, which is sad because that's a lot of revenue left on the table.
Yeah.
And part of it, it just comes down to the expectations have changed. Should it be mobile friendly? Absolutely. Should it be simple, easy to use? Absolutely. And the younger the demographic, interestingly, if we look at millennials and Gen Z, both of them said, like, make it easy, make it simple, less steps, like just less friction.
Let me give.
Just let me give. And ultimately, if you think about it, it's an administrative step in my day. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I just want to be able to do it, get it done, boom. And a generation of like one-click purchase, Apple Pay, it's just been made so easy for us. And so any sort of friction is turning them away. And so they said, those are the things that you need to do for me. Now, there are also some additional pieces like security, but that tends to skew older. It turns out young people just expect security. They don't really care. Use my data wherever you want. Maybe I'm like that, and that's true. But we still need to use things like security seals, those things that make me feel like you're going to use my personal information wisely. And you see that skew Boomer and Gen X more so saying that. Those are barriers for them. When they don't see those signals, then they're going to stop giving because they're just not sure.
Yeah.
So those are, honestly, those are really easy to do. Most platforms are going to give you that baked in. So if you're not doing that right now, do it. It's very simple.
Yeah. I want to know who the organizations are that are creating such friction that 1 in 5 people are abandoning the process.
And we ask people, like, do you want to log in? Ubiquitous, no. They don't want to log in.
No one wants to log into anything.
No. And yet some organizations still require the donor to do the effort of logging in, creating an account, all of those things. We should do that work for them, make it as simple as possible.
Few fields as possible.
Yep.
Like I did see that as one of the reasons for abandonment was
fewer fields.
There's too many fields to
like home phone, fax. These things aren't necessary anymore. Just saying.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And that's one of the takeaways that we'd encourage you is just to kind of always need to check these things. Is your online giving process seamless, simple? Does it have really minimal clutter? And then I think just some additional recommendations from us would be, how are you following up that gift, that online gift? What's the thank you process like? How quickly does it happen? Is it personalized? Do you show evidence of what that gift is going to do? Or is it just a very antiseptic receipt that comes?
Yep.
Yeah, Show Me the Impact was actually, it was number 3 for the younger demos. It was, I need to know what I'm doing. Like, I need to know the impact of this gift I'm making now. So tying that into so just having a donation page without any sort of impact statement is going to be a problem for them. They said that was a priority for them too.
It's good. A lot of stuff to work on. Rick, would you say there are any other takeaways that we haven't hit on that are really important, or would you encourage people to go download the report, and where do they do that?
Yeah, there's a lot of data in this report. Now I think we've hit on the most important, and they can go to obviously the Dunham+Company website, hit on research, and you'll see a form there or place you can put in your details and get a copy.
Yeah, it's good. Also, article recently released in the Chronicle of Philanthropy, is this correct?
Last week, when we released the report, they covered it. They were especially intrigued by the challenge of a public being uninformed about tax law changes that could have a dramatic impact. Because there's a lot related to itemizers too that if they understood would incentivize giving.
That's good. So if you get a chance, chroniclephilanthropy.com, .org, like I said, log on to that website, go check out that article that they wrote on our donor confidence research. You can find it at dunhamandcompany.com as well, under the research tab, as Rick mentioned. So thank you guys for joining me today, for kind of helping us break down some of the takeaways from the Donor Confidence and Giving Behavior, a 2026 report. So go find your copy soon. Thanks for joining us, and join us again next time on Cause and Effect.
And thanks for listening to the Cause and Effect Podcast, a resource developed by Dunham+Company.
We'll be back in 2 weeks with a new episode. In the meantime, do us a favor. If you like this content, subscribe, share us with a friend, leave us a review on your podcast provider, and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Dunham+Company to help us spread the word.
Thanks again, and join us next time as we work together towards increased effectiveness for more impact.